As of the time of recording, it's Refugee Week, and so I thought I'd share a couple of different anecdotes from some of the interviews I've done in the last 12 months with former refugees now living in Tasmania. They recount some of the different aspects of the refugee experience, from a family's long journey on foot to escape the oncoming Soviet army in 1944, to the memory of a school classroom being hit by a missile in Damascus, or remembering life in a refugee camp in Uganda, or being a persecuted minority in Bhutan, and the long-term impact of witnessing a genocide in Rwanda. Hopefully these stories will make us reflect a bit on our own good fortune of living in such a safe and stable country, and appreciate how people just living normal lives can suddenly become refugees through circumstance and then face a perilous and difficult journey to escape.
Yes, we left Latvia in 1944 in October, and it was because the Russian army was coming into Latvia and the German army was moving out because the Russians were defeating the German army. So we were in between the two, and the Russian army was burning our town where we were living, and there was nothing to do but get out.
And how did you get out? And where did you go?
As a matter of fact, we had quite an adventure. First of all, my father was working in Riga, and we were in Cesis, which was about 200 kilometres north. And he said, I have ordered a truck that you can ride to get to Riga on, and after that then we'll work out how we get to on the boat to get out. So my mother, with 6 children, as well as my father's mother, we got on this truck that was loaded with logs and bags of cement, and we were on the way to Riga, but we had to go on smaller roads because the German army were occupying the highways. However, as the truck was travelling and trying to keep away from the German transport, it veered to the left and toppled over, and we were all thrown. Us children, we were sitting on top of the logs on the back of the truck, and my mother and a 2-month-old brother were in the front. However, we were all thrown out under these logs and under the bags of cement, and fortunately there was the German army close by who came to the rescue, and we all ended up in hospital with various injuries. My mother was very badly hurt in the head, and though most of us only had minor injuries, we got home. But my grandmother had a broken hip and she died a couple of days later, and my mother was in hospital, unable to move. And while we were all checking out who was badly hurt and who wasn't, my older sister started to say, but where's our 2-month-old baby? Where's the brother? And nobody could find him. And in the end, he was stuck between 2 logs with lots of white lime, I suppose it was, all over him. However, they took him out and he was fine.
Wow.
So we all went back to our other grandparents' home and stayed there. So that was our first attempt to get out. Only a week or 2 later, our father came home, and he and my other grandfather had to bury his mother because there were no more workers in the cemeteries. They had to do that themselves, and there was no more transport to be had. So my father and grandfather built sort of a hood on a truck, on a horse cart, and we were going to go by horse and cart to Riga. Unfortunately, my mother was still in hospital, and when we were all packed to go, then my other grandparents decided to come with us as well. So they had the horse, took a cow, because of my little brother who needed milk, and we all went in this horse and cart, and on the way past the hospital, my father just picked Mother up and put her in. So in the cart there was Mother, my little brother, and we were twins, 4-year-old. And then there were another sister who was 8, a brother who was 9, and another sister who was 14. And they had to walk, as did my grandparents. So they all walked from Cesis about 200 kilometres to Riga.
Wow, it's a long way to walk.
Yeah. On the way, there was still the German army retreating, and we had to go through forests, not on the highways, through back roads. Some places, because it took a lot longer than it would have taken on the truck, of course, some places we could stop and could stay in farmers' barns, but other people weren't very welcoming, and we just stayed on the side of the road or under the horse cart. And so we got to Riga. By that time there were no boats or ships going from Riga, so we had to go another 240 kilometres to a port that was called Liepaja, and that's what we did after a week or so in Riga, just having a rest. Then we set off again in the horse and cart to the port where we knew there were still ships taking the German army back to Germany. About halfway, the cart came to grief and they had to do a lot of repairs. And then a bit further, our relatives, my mother's sister, used to live about halfway to this Liepaja port. And so we thought we could stop there, but the German army had already occupied their house, and the family had moved except for the husband, who was still there. So we could stay there for a couple of days, and fortunately from there the train was still going to the port. So then we had to leave the horse and cow and everything else and just took the cases that we could carry, and we got to the port and got onto a ship that was carrying German soldiers back to Germany. They loaded also their horses in the very bottom part of the ship, and then us refugees on top of the horses, and then the soldiers had the best accommodation at the top. However, we were fortunate to get to Germany safely, though many boats were bombed on the way.
Bhutan is a Buddhist country, so our fathers we went to Bhutan as a labor. So, and we are from Hindu backgrounds, and the Bhutan government loved the hard work, and they was very happy and was given a citizenship land, and we lived there for hundreds of years. As the Hindu population was growing, as it was growing quite fast, and they started holding a different position in the governments and in the House of Assembly. And then when Nepal had a democracy, India had a democracy, and the Bhutan government said, these peoples are originally from Nepal, they have some kind of relationship with Nepal. Now Nepal got democracy, democracy, probably they will want the same thing here in Bhutan. And Bhutan government became pretty smart, and then they did a census and then categorized the same family in the different groups. And those we are from Nepal origin were kicked from the country. So I was around 10 years old when my family had to leave the country. We went to Nepal via India, and we lived in the camp for 19 years as a refugee before coming to Australia.
And when you say you had to leave, if my understanding is correct, many people were forced to leave by violence. Is that right?
That's correct. So we were forced to leave the country. We were asked to sign a piece of paper with the guns, showing the guns that I say, okay, I'm leaving my country as a voluntary, but that's not a voluntary. That was the force behind, and was armies was implemented to kick these people out from the country.
So it was signing something at gunpoint.
Yep, that's
basically.
true. Yeah, signing something at the gunpoint.
And so if you didn't sign it, what would happen?
Yes, that's a really good question, Mark. A good example, my eldest brother, he was arrested and in the prison for 13 months, and he got a very capital punishment when he was in the prison. And then we didn't hope that he was coming back because there were so many allegations made to him. But luckily he came, and then we were asked to sign that paper to leave the country, or they're going to put the same other family members into the prison. So there was no choice. There was two only options: either in the prison or to leave the country. And majority of the neighbors from my village left the country, so I had to leave.
And so was the journey something that, did a lot of people move at once and go straight from Bhutan to Nepal, or was it every sort of family for themselves?
Bhutan, the place where I was born, is quite a remote, We didn't have the transportation system. We had to walk 3 days to get into the borders, and then we took the truck and we were loaded at the back of a truck, and then we went and lived in Nepal for 3 nights, and then we had to book another truck to go to Nepal, which was 1 day trip.
So it's quite a long...
It's a long journey. It's a long journey.
And you have to travel through India as well, don't you?
Yeah, India, sitting on the back of the truck.
Do you remember that well?
Yeah, I remember. It was a very hot day. And we have full load of people sitting on the back of the truck, including small children to elderly people, and traveling through India. And I think that was my second time journey in a truck. In a vehicle.
So the war started when I was in year 4. It began with the protests in the streets, and at first we were not too worried about it. We thought it was just only a protest at the end, After all, just a protest. But then 4 months later, things began to escalate with ISIS got involved. It was literally overnight that we realized things were really serious.
When did you realize it was serious, or what made you realize it was serious?
I remember waking up one day to the news saying that it's a suburb in Syria. It was I think 2-hour drive from us, from Damascus. Was falling down. All the houses were bombed, and we saw that the first thing in the news overnight. We woke up to that in the news. Daraa is, it's on the ground, nothing left, no buildings. All the civilians people there were dead. And that's what we made us oh my God, it's really close.
Yeah.
I think in the first year that happened, we were let's not leave house and things. But, when you live 7 years of the war, you can't just stay at home. Life had to go as normal, despite the missiles flying overhead. Doesn't matter. You just have to live your life and go out and hope you don't die. You have to continue as normal.
So I guess that means that it wasn't the war wasn't constantly going on around you. There would be sort of times when it got worse and better.
Yes. I think until now the war goes in ups and downs. I think we had a month where we had a car bombing every single day, and you never know where, you could be walking near a car and suddenly it's explode. And then we had a month of,
ceasefire, quiet.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a month. We had a month where the car bombing was happening everywhere, and you walk near a car, you never know it's gonna be exploded in the next seconds or not. But then the next month we had a really quiet month, and then we go again. You never knows when it's gonna happen.
And so did that kind of situation make you feel more anxious, or did you just learn to accept it?
We did definitely feel anxious, but yeah, we did just learn to live with it. Yeah, again, you just have to. Otherwise, you're gonna go crazy. If you're gonna sit down, even me now thinking about it, I'm like, how was I able to normalize that? It drives me crazy. So I try not to think about it as much, and you not be able to think about it. You would just die from thinking. I think you'll kill yourself from thinking.
Yeah, I guess you've got to balance it up, don't you? Between
100%.
trying to feel safe and be safe,
Yep.
but also not go to such an extreme that you kind of kill yourself from worry and
100%. Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah. Otherwise, you lock yourself in a room and you just stay there.
Yeah, which isn't really a life.
No.
Is it?
No. Maybe we thought of, not leave the house for the first year because we thought, okay, things will gonna end at some point. But the war's still going till now. That's lots of years. We lived 7 years of the war, and if we have locked ourselves, it would be a problem.
And so at what stage did your family decide that you need to leave?
There was actually 2 incidents that made my family think, okay, it's time to flee. When I was grade 9, that something happened that actually shattered our new normal. In a rare moment of respite from the war, we 3 siblings, me, Sally and Shadi, were sitting outside on our balcony with mom preparing our lunch. We were giggling and joking, like, normal people do. Despite the war, we actually felt in that moment life was okay, good, you feel good here and there. Dad calls us to come to the table, and we went. Then, barely 1 second later, we heard a deafening explosion. We knew straight away it was the missile. We automatically took Refugee into the bathroom because it was the strongest room in our house, as I said. We crashed there, trembling, our hearts pounding, fearing for our lives. When the shocking dust cleared, Dad made a shocking discovery. The missile had completely destroyed the balcony. Nothing was left there of where we were sitting, laughing and talking, only seconds before. All the furniture were raining down. The event rocked us to our very core. The memory of how close we came to certain death on that day still haunts and triggers us. But on a lighter note, Mom now said that from then on until we left Syria, she slept every night with one eye open, as if that one open eye could stop an ISIS missile in its track. And I think that another incident, that this balcony incident was followed by another traumatic event. Mm-hmm. The following year, so I was grade 10, that one day while my mom was teaching at her school, a missile fell short of its intended target, hitting one of the grade 4 classrooms, where it exploded. My sister, Sally, was in grade 4 at the time, but in all the panic, noise, smoke and chaos, Mom was uncertain which grade 4 classroom has been hit. Frozen in a terror and shock, she could not bring herself to run towards the place where the missile had exploded, fearing that she might find her daughter's broken and bloodied body. To make matters worse, so many missiles had rained on Damascus that day that the mobile network was jammed, so Mom could not contact me at another school to see whether I was still alive or not. As it turned out, by the grace of God, Sally's classroom was undamaged and I was okay too. At that stage, ISIS were only 10 minutes drive away from our suburb. I would say it's roughly the distance between Hobart City to Glenorchy. Mm-hmm. And it was way too close for comfort.
Yeah.
And yes, it was the most definitely time to get out of Syria.
Basically, the refugees came was Sudanese, but we do get an interview with the Ugandan citizens because they're also nearby the refugees camp. So in the refugees camp, we basically, unless we go out of that, so we go near town or something, yeah. Feel like when I was a little bit older, when I got a little bit older, we were able to go to the town, to the shop, or, mothers would send us to the nearest town to buy stuff and bring back. That's when we start interfering. But before that, in the refugees camp, we had the camp school, everything nearby. So the camp is being protected, even though, we got attacked. We get to it later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the camp was sort of self-contained, but you were able to kind of go in and out.
Yeah, we're able to go in and out in very nearby, not long distance, but everybody got given a little bit of land, so say maybe a couple of hectares to grow stuff on, as well as the UNCR sort of give corn or which they call it maize, dry ones, and some beans and some soap and some oil and some salt to help. But by everything else, that's not enough to raise family. You have to grow small things. You have to grow your own greens. And they supply us with a bit of seed so we could, but it was harder for us because there was not a male figure. Mm-hmm. Because my father being passed a lot earlier, that changes a bit of a game. Yeah.
I've noticed that seems to be quite a common thing for many Sudanese who come here, that they don't have a father figure.
Yeah, that's a lot because I don't know about for other people how they lost their parents or their father, but my father was a commander.
Okay.
But so they were taking food somewhere, and then accident happened, which they ran on the mines and that blow up. So, and that's how we lost him. But so many people lost their parents or their older siblings in a different ways, or they try to fight back, or in that sort of situation where you feel like you're old enough to you feel responsible to protect your family, but a lot of people were lost that way, especially fathers. They send their wife and their children to run ahead, and they stood and fought to back them off a bit, but
yeah. It's one of the real tragic things of war, isn't it? That often that can happen.
Yeah, war is every war is a crime. I think every single war it's a crime. It's not. There's no war called fair war. There's not just equal, because every war, no matter what sort of war is, the civilians are the one are in trouble.
Yeah.
Because they hurt civilian to hurt the other side of the army or rebels or whatever, whoever is fighting for whatever they believe in, what they're fighting for. At the end of the day, civilians get caught up and.
I've been trying to talk about good stories about people who saved people's lives, for example, but you always end up, always somewhere. But we that's what we really been trying to work on so hard, to try to convey the message without really traumatizing people, because people they don't like to hear bad stories sometimes. But But stories happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's if you don't at least remember these things, then you run the danger that people will forget and will continue. It will continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, for us, really, it's something you live with. That's something that's changed our lives forever.
Yeah.
Because it's not something it's always in the back of your head. It's always there. You just ignore it and keep living, but it's always constantly there. It's not something you can say, well, I wish I could forget about it, but it's always. It's not. It's just. It makes you the person you are. It changes your life forever once you've gone through that kind of life experience. It's like somebody who, I don't know, if you had a heart attack and don't know, and something dramatic, get hit by a car, probably you're more careful. Every time you're about to cross the road, you say, oh, the danger of a car or something like that. And it's not something, you don't even think about it, it's something that's always thinking you're more careful. And this genocide is exactly the same in an extreme level, because it was something so brutal and so unexpected, because it was done by the best friends. Husbands killed their wives, and uncles and aunties killed their nephews and nieces, and just trying to process all that kind of things.
Yeah.
I say. And people just never thought they can do such things, and they're the ones who did it. It's just, that's why it just, it's something, once you've seen it, and then it's always there. It's not going to leave you alone. You wish you can forget, but don't think you'd be able to forget those stuff. But guess what? Well, I think I'm happy. I'm a happy man, despite all of that. I think I'm a much better person because of that life experience I had.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more understanding and more, yeah. So again, you just have to be strong enough to, to allow that kind of experience to define the person you are.